Warhammer Plus? More Warhammer more often? Is it $1 million idea or not? Let's find out.
It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show on your screens tonight. It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show for your home delight. We're talking about Age of Sigmar and anything else that is cool. Talking about Warhammer Fantasy, it's easy to learn the rules. Andy and Remington, Andy and Remington, Andy and Remington Show.
Welcome one and all. It's time once again for the Andy and Rem Show, episode 161. And we've got sizzle and spice tonight. So first of all, for anyone playing the Remington Blinds game at home, you could submit your predictions now. Are Remington's blinds open or closed? Predict in the comments now, because we're about to reveal the truth. See that the blinds are in fact open tonight. So anyone who said open, well done to you. See Mr. Remington in his Leicester City attire there. Maybe not in the best of moods this week.
Open for business though, business as usual in the Chateau de Remington. So what's this about Warhammer Plus, Andy?
Well, I believe you've been living under a rock the last few days, haven't you? Because there's quite a few news items that have slipped through the Remington cracks, shall we say. So first of all, Warhammer Plus. You've heard of Netflix, you've heard of Disney Plus, you've heard of Amazon Prime, you've heard of all these streaming services. But Warhammer Plus, a one-stop shop for all your Warhammer-based animated, fictitious tales of glory, death.
Is there enough content for a whole TV channel?
Well, that's the question. They've announced 11 series at launch.
What? They've made 11. Is there? I mean, I've seen a few like Warhammer 40k cartoons and animations like knocking about. Back in the day, I saw a whole feature film with Space Marines that wasn't supposed to be released, and I sort of managed to see it somehow. So, is it old stuff or is it new stuff?
Well, let's have a look. Action-packed animations and more. Warhammer Plus will be an exciting new way to interact with the worlds of Warhammer. Animations are just the start. There's a whole heap of stuff coming, from more exclusive content to special access areas and dedicated offers and rewards. There might even be some exclusive miniatures in the offing. Keep checking back for more information and join us on the blah 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 blah. Well, let's have a look at the silent trailer, shall we? Because we don't want to play sound and get the 0.5 pence I was going to make from this video taken away from me. I earned that money.
Could you do the voiceover instead?
I could try. Okay. For the Emperor, my children, don't forget the glory. Yes, the Emperor, he's very important. Going to see him now. Oh, no, you're not. Ah, what was that? Yes. Move.
Oh no, it's a cartoon now. It looked really good, and now it doesn't. That bit looks good. Oh, shooting Galactic. Oh no, the Emperor. No, Horus. Oh no, that doesn't look as good.
Blood,
that looks
Space Marines.
It's dead good, but then it goes all manga. That's like Sin City now.
Stop.
What? Who's that? Oh. Only the faithful.
See, why don't they get me to do all the voice acting for this thing?
He looks good.
You don't need dialogue, you just need grunts.
Blood Angels. That's the old. It's too much. I can't remember all the names, but that looks good.
Smash, stab, splat, hunt, kick, punch, angle,
Warhammer Plus. Okay.
So more Warhammer, more often.
Wow. This is exciting. What's your feelings, Andy? I'm thinking Games Workshop is turning into a giant
You think
of the
it's turning into some
entertainment.
giant monolithic entity?
Yes, it's like the UK Disney, isn't it? I said that years ago, didn't I?
Well, this is
They've got-
definitely an untapped market to them. It's not something they've particularly branched out into in the past. Whether this particular batch of content will be any good, we'll have to judge them on their individual merits when they're out there. But it's definitely interesting because there are people out there that aren't that fascinated with reading the novels, and it could be a way to get people more invested in the universe, particularly Age of Sigmar universe, that a lot of people skim over or just don't bother with at all.
Would you need to have channels within Warhammer Plus, like one for Age of Sigmar, one for Necromunda? Would you have many channels? You know, or Warhammer
Well, I'm pretty
for
sure
kids?
it'll just be within one big menu, and you'll go to like subsections. Like here's the 40k section.
Would you have Warhammer audiobooks within the channel too? Right?
Well,
Because
why not?
we say channel, but all these are like you can access them off your phone, right? So you're driving along.
We've got a controversial comment here. Brad says the 40k novels are snoozeville.
Oh dear.
Well, I'm sure people would disagree with that. They are wildly popular after all. But I thought we could come up with a few of our own ideas for Warhammer Plus. Since obviously they've got tons of different Space Marine stories, a bit of Stormcast in there, some Orcs, Necrons, a bit of Tau, but they are lacking in a few areas. So I say we just fire out some wild ideas that Warhammer Plus could run with.
I mean,
We're not expecting any royalties. We're just trying to help them along.
I mean, look, Brad, Godtrek with Brian Blessed. That's a great idea to start with. I mean, because I think what are your choices? You could carry on getting outside companies to make Warhammer influenced shows, okay, and then you get the license money, and then that gets streamed somewhere else. But maybe Games Workshop just want to be vertically integrated. That means they own and produce everything from within inside themselves. And what's the best revenue model, Andy, in today's day and age? What do you think the best revenue model is?
Well, I assume because of what we're talking about, you're going to say streaming subscription services.
Yes, reoccurring income, right? And so, you know, all these people are paying monthly for Netflix and Amazons and all that. So they would get potentially big income to do it all in house and have it their way. Oh, okay, it's Donald Kelly. Have that, Donald. You know what? It's lovely to see a positive comment. Look at that on my behalf, bigging up my ideas for once. Rem is onto something with the audio integration, especially if it was competitive with the Audible system. There you go, Andy.
Well, I think if you compare it to something like Amazon Prime, because comparing it straight to Netflix, I think obviously Games Workshop is smaller than these companies, but Netflix is purely a streaming service. They don't also sell you stuff on the side, whereas an Amazon Prime obviously has Amazon, the shopping experience, buying things. And the reason I have an Amazon Prime subscription isn't to watch things very often. It's mainly so I can say, I need a new pair of kitchen scissors. I want them by like 10 p.m. tonight. Here we go. Done. So that's the reason I would go for it. So if GW are going to tie various other elements into their Warhammer Plus, so it's not just animation and other kind of viewing content, but if they put in their kind of preferential miniature sales treatment of some kind in there, then they could definitely be onto something of interest there.
Andy, I'm thinking there's going to be even bigger studios in the heart of Nottingham. We're going to have Warhammer Studios, a whole production suite. Why not? It's going to be like, you know, Universal Studios in London or Elstree in LA. Sorry, you got the old Elstree Studios in London, where all the like 1950s films were made, UK ones. Now we could have, you know, Games Workshop owning its own facility. It could be amazing, or it could be a complete disaster. I don't know, but the question is, would Andy subscribe to it? Because if they can get Andy's pounds, they can get anyone's pounds.
That will be the test. So I'm going to have to wait to see the full lineup of services, not just these 11 things that we've been promised.
Well, one thing's for sure: Games Workshop protect their IP like rabid lions. It's very difficult to just put stuff up there that belongs to them without getting hunted down. You'll see audiobooks on YouTube and they'll just get taken down really quickly.
You know what strikes me as a little bit strange about it? You would think that a company could perhaps test the streaming waters and push their IP out there a bit and get someone else to make them a Netflix series, for instance, based on the 40k IP, and then they'd see if it was wildly popular and then bring it all in-house.
That's happening though. Didn't you know that? There's like, I think is it called Inquisitor or something like that? It's a 40k witch hunter basically. It's being made into a Netflix series. That's what I heard last year. I mean, we can look it up.
Is that so? Have we ever talked about it?
I've mentioned it, but you've probably brushed it off like all my other $1 million ideas.
Probably. But if it's not even out there in the world yet, then they can't really have gauged its wild popularity, can they?
No, but it could be a different production company, couldn't it? That just wants their blessing. Because you've got to remember, Games Workshop got 40 years, 50 years almost of content. Amazing stories, amazing characters, amazing themes. Brad Jimenez, Warhammer cooking show starring Lumping Croup, Halfling Chef.
Well, we'll get some of our silly ideas in a minute, but one thing that you can say for Games Workshop over the last 5 or 6 years is that they're fed up with leaving money on the table. I think it's safe to say. Because before that, there were just piles and piles of cash that they weren't raking in by choice. There were lots of things they weren't doing that they've started doing in the last few years, and this is definitely another one of those frontiers that they haven't explored yet.
It seems, Andy, you could potentially get your dream job. There could be lots of jobs coming up, lots of, requesting of talent, So
if GW are inundated with 12 emails demanding that they hire me to do something, then surely, how could they refuse? They might even ask for a Remington theme song for one of the shows.
That'd be phenomenal. I mean, talking about piles of cash, maybe it's time we look at the Games Workshop share price, because today, in fact, I messaged Andy this picture, and I messaged him a news article that I came across a couple of days ago, which I think ties in very nicely to this.
Well, as we're looking at this, let's just tell everyone that it is time for
Remington's Millions.
Yeah, Remington's Millions. So take it away. We've got this very nice little chart here, and we've also got a news item related to the millions. So take it away.
Well, look at my £1 million investment. Actually, it's 0.1 shares of Games Workshop, which today equals an all-time high, Andy. And what you're looking at is the entire Games Workshop share price chart. That big dip in the middle was the COVID crash in late February, March. And if you'd bought shares there, you could have got them for £35. Now they're currently standing at an all-time high of £116 a share. And, I did buy a bunch of shares and I sold them off last time it hit this high. And I bought in a very modest amount where those dotted lines are. So I think I've done pretty well riding the GW train there. And relating to this, Andy, Games Workshop staff have recently been rewarded, or will be rewarded, with shares in Games Workshop, because Games Workshop give out a dividend. So they're also giving out a 50p per share dividend. So every 3 months, they pay shareholders a little bit of money, depending on how many shares they own. And this money comes from Games Workshop's profits, but only truly surplus profits, okay? So only money that they have lying around that they don't plan on using for anything. So they reward shareholders who have invested in their company. And this year they're giving out as a bonus to their, I think, almost 2,000 employees. They're giving out, I think, a couple of shares per employee, which is, obviously you can see it's worth about £250, which I think is pretty cool. That's a nice bonus, isn't it? To give your employees shares in your company. It's something that used to happen a long time ago.
Well, you wouldn't say no to a nice little cheeky bonus like that, would you?
No, but what would you do, Andy? I've given you 2 Games Workshop shares, currently at an all-time high, and you will receive the 50p per share every 3 months.
Well, I know what I'd do. I'd tune into this show and look at your expert analysis of these charts and graphs, and then decide when's the best time to pile in more cash and when's the best time to bail out and put all my money into some other risky venture.
Well, would you just a quick yes or no? Would you sell or would you hold?
At the moment, seems like selling time to me if it's an all-time high.
Who's to say it can't go higher? Look, Games Workshop are getting ever more and more expansionist, aren't they? And
well, if this whole streaming service takes off, then the current all-time highs could be made to look like a bit of a joke, really, couldn't they? If it just completely goes through the ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, Netflix shares are worth something like £300-400. Amazon shares are worth over £3,000 or something. Crazy, right?
Here's a question though. So if they're giving away these shares to their employees,
yes,
in your financial expert opinion, what is the reason for this other than pure benevolence? How does this advantage Games Workshop?
It's not going to cost them anything giving them shares that the company own already, right? So that's one advantage. 2, it gains it gains your staff have more what's the word? They're
Loyalty.
more loyal. Yes, the staff are more loyal to you. They feel like they're part of something. And having listened to a talk at my college a couple of weeks ago by the head of design at Games Workshop, he said when they're recruiting people at Games Workshop, they want to recruit them for life. He literally said that. It's like, this isn't a job. This is going to be your life if you work for us. So we'll get talent from anywhere around the world, but we'll want them to bring their whole family because we don't want them to leave after a year. So what better way than to reward your employees with shares in the company so they can share in the success?
Now, while we're still on Remington's Millions, the Colonel in the chat there is suggesting now is the time. The market is ripe for Remcoin to enter the cryptocurrency market, and it's safe to say that the cryptocurrency market is having a bit of a turbulent time, as usual. And one thing I read on Twitter recently, I can't remember who posted it, but they were saying that previously these currencies were seen as kind of the next global major currency, that they would eventually replace money with these kind of cryptocurrencies, whereas now people look at it as an opportunity to get rich quick and then offload them. Is that fair to say?
That second part is much of, in my opinion, the reason why we've just seen the latest crash, because most of the people that sold Bitcoin in last week, where there was almost a 54% crash, which would look something like that big scar in the Games Workshop chart there, that big V shape. It currently looks something like that now. And there's lots of reasons for that. Part of it's a cyclical nature of cryptocurrency. But the other reason is that most of the people that sold were people that had bought in the last month to 6 weeks. So they saw the price was edging down and they went, oh, panic. I was supposed to be a millionaire tomorrow. A lot of those sold, and that triggered a series of sell-offs from people that had long positions in Bitcoin. We'll get quite complicated with that, but that's one reason. Lots of FUD going around. There's lots. In fact, I read a news article, Andy, from 2013. Okay, and it said I think it was from Bloomberg or some big financial press. It said the age of Bitcoin is over. Laughing out loud. The next digital currency, Bitcoin drops from £600 to £200. That was 8 years ago. Bitcoin is currently worth something like £28,000. So we hear this every few months. The fact is, the world is going digital. It's just a matter of time, really. So you can take that as you want it. But you've seen in this last year that cash is almost seen as trash, and we're using digital money anyway, aren't we? Most of the time.
I think it's generally accepted that the currencies that most of us are using for those transactions are far less volatile.
Yeah, I mean, look, we could seriously have our own channel about this as well, but there's lots of FUD, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt going around. Someone like Elon Musk tweets, and these are very short-term things. These people really don't dictate the long-term price action of these things. This is just the daily action, which I'm not really concerned about because I'm holding for a lot longer than that. Wow. So I bought my Bitcoin when it was £7,000, and it went all the way up to something like £46,000. So that's a massive profit margin within 1 year. So it going down to 28,000, I'm still very much in the green, so it doesn't affect me at all. I see it as a buying opportunity.
Well then, how about some rumour engines?
Go on then.
So here's an axe head. What do you think that's from?
Ooh, that looks quite... Do you know, the bit on the left looked like tuning pegs from a lute or a mandolin.
So you think it could be a mandolin axe? I have my doubts.
What do you think? So could it be a bard axe? A bard's axe?
It does look strangely instrumental, doesn't it? If you look at the holes on the handle there.
They're nails, aren't they? They're actually nails hammered in, and they're hammered in very badly. That would then suggest it's orcs.
The shape of it would suggest definitely some kind of orky contraption. But the way it's angled, these things here look like little holes, like it's some kind of hybrid instrument with an axe head strapped to the end of it. So,
could it be futuristic or could it be fantasy? What do you say about that?
I would say it's impossible to say with orcs, because until you get to a wire coming out of it, then you have no idea really. So I think it would be wild speculation on our part for this one.
Oh, Brad. Hello, Brad. Brad says hobgoblin. That'd be good, wouldn't it? The return of the hobgoblin.
It would, if the hobgoblin, the swamp hobgoblins are true, that rumour wasn't just totally made up, then that could certainly pass as a weapon, and it would tie in slightly with the rumour that they were going to somewhat resemble Lord of the Rings orcs.
Because, I don't like that rumour.
But that weapon does carry the kind of shape that you might see a Lord of the Rings orc carry. Don't you think?
I'm still thinking about Remcoin, Andy. What do you think? Should we launch a Remcoin? I don't think Andy Coin will go down too well, so let's go with what we know will be a sure win.
Well, I think we could release an Andy coin and a Rem coin and see which one sells the best.
They could. I mean,
we can track their value.
Hello, sir. Colonel Billington in the house. Bitcoin fluctuates based on what Elon tweets. Remcon would fluctuate based on the Andy and Rem show episodes. I like that.
Yeah, so if I want to sync Remcon, then we'd just do a 40k episode. Sync the old Rem coin. Now we've got another rumour engine here, and it's a face probably on a shield, with maybe a hand gripping the top of it there. Hard to tell, but does that look like hobgoblin? Does that look like a hobgoblin kind of shield to you?
It looks orcish, but not. So, but it looks fat. It's got a fatter face than a goblin, but it's got a squig's neck.
So all this could be building up to the grand reveal of the Age of Sigmar box.
Hold on a minute. Will Matthews like a comet with a message there in the chat. You can see the new hobgoblins in animations video at 1 minute 20.
What?
animations video. Let's have a look, Andy.
Which video is that?
Will
Is that the one we've already
tell us
looked
more.
at, or is it a different one?
Tell us more, Andy. William.
Yes. So while we're waiting for that response, you can see here that there is a countdown still going for the new dawn for the Mortal Realms. So we'll find out exactly what's coming in the Age of Sigmar box in under 4 days now.
Oh, right. That's gone down a lot, hasn't it?
That's how time works usually, yes.
Interesting. So 3 days, 21 hours until Rem coin drops.
The one we just looked at 1 minute 20. Let's go back then. It's telling us that it's this one, I think.
Do you think I can get Andy into cryptocurrency? Maybe.
Let's see.
I think I already have. Right.
Is that Hobgoblin? Getting his face smashed in?
Oh. Oh, it's just the briefest of encounters there. Come on, let's try again.
Is that Hobgoblin?
No. Maybe. It looked like a tribal orchioid, didn't it?
Yeah, maybe. I'm sure people are furiously screen capping that as we speak. Anyway, I'm sure we'll get a nice glimpse on Saturday. And we'll see if it's worthy of a show sooner than next Tuesday or not. Obviously, as long as it doesn't interfere with the viewing of the Champions.
Well, I wish you the very best of luck.
So, yeah, more about the finding out on Saturday. So they are teasing us heavily with this. What's in the box, we'll find out on Saturday.
What's in what box?
The new Age of Sigmar box for the new edition.
Oh, wow. I thought that was ages away.
Well, we're going to find out what's in the box very soon. I don't know when it's actually going to be released. But apparently,
yeah, so
6 p.m. on Saturday.
That's not too far. So then we get to know whether it really is swamp orcs, right?
Yep. Whether the Hobgoblin rumour is true or whether it was pure wild rumours and speculation.
Alexander says box set is not a starter set.
What?
Seems Indomitus-ish. Right. What does that mean then? It's not a starter set, so it's. But I thought it was the launch of Age of Sigmar 3, 3rd edition.
That's what I thought. We're going to need some more info there, Alexander. As we continue.
Andy, would you be interested in splitting the box with me and you having the Stormcast side?
Well, I don't see why not.
Because you've got a Stormcast force, haven't you?
I've got plenty of Stormcast that are probably horribly obsolete in the rules now.
I'm getting another Mortal Realms, what do you call it? Binder coming up in the next one. I think there's only 2 or 3 months left of the Mortal Realms magazines to run now, so I did subscribe. So I do have a whole host of Sigmarines unopened, Andy, so maybe might sell you those.
So Alexander and William are trying to give us more info here. So 40k got the Indomitus box, which was a limited edition starter box, and then a plain old starter box came out after that. Seems to be the case. So the new Age of Sigmar box will be a massive mega box, if you will, like the ultimate starter box, and then a plain old one after that. Is that right? So limited edition launch box, an obscene price. People will somehow get their hands on 10 of them, and then
sell out real quick,
and then put them all on eBay. So we'll have to camp outside Warhammer World to get a copy. Too.
Yeah. What's happening with Cursed City? Has that already become like a rareable thing?
I don't know. I see a lot of them on the Facebook sales groups, and they all get laugh reacted into oblivion on Facebook as well, because people they try and cook up these hilarious stories. So instead of just saying I'm going to sell half the box to make a load of money, then they'll have some backstory to it. Like, I think we've talked about this before. Like they'll say me and my 8 children, we were going to play it, but then one of them was taken ill and we didn't want to play it without them, and now we can't even bear to look at it as they're lying on their deathbed, so we're going to have to part with the miniatures and we're going to use the money to pay for their medical bills.
And we want £400.
Yeah, because people aren't very happy at paying way over the original price for these things, obviously, and no one wants the shame of being a scalper, so they have to come up with these outrageous tales. They're not usually that wild. But
Is it so bad scalping? Maybe we should do our own dedicated show to scalping. Is it that bad? If there's demand and there's supply, then you know it's a fair price, isn't it?
yeah, but if you're creating artificial demand by owning all of it, the demand
Yeah.
isn't what was driving the price, it was the fact that you've hogged all of it.
Oh, but you can bring down the price. So if you go on eBay and there's a Curse City box going for like £500, doesn't mean someone's going to pay that much, does it? It could just be sitting on eBay for the next 2 years as £500. You can then enter the market and go, all right, I'll sell it for £100. Which one are people going to buy? They're going to buy yours. So you can upset the apple cart like
Yeah,
that.
but then the person that buys it from you will go and put it on for 400.
Yeah, yeah. Right, there is that. Yes, there is that.
Anytime that they're not essential to the supply chain. They're not adding anything to it. They're not making the game more accessible to you. All they're doing is taking a slice of the pie as it passes through their hands.
But I could equally say, oh, well, yeah, I'll sell it for what I bought it for, or I'll sell it for less than what I bought it for, and people will go, oh, that's really cool, nice one, and then they sell it for £500 on eBay. So
Yes.
you know, if you've got to go with it with its current value, and the fact is, you can't get it anymore, so you're not going to get it in a shop for £100, and you know, so you can basically charge what you want. It is fair.
Yes,
If someone's
but the
willing to
people
pay that.
who would have been buying it originally and weren't able to get it because other people were able to get their hands on multiple copies is an issue.
What? So those people that had the initiative to get multiple copies should, out of charity, give it to the person who failed.
Cold-hearted capitalist Remington strikes again.
No, I admit, I went onto the Games Workshop site and it was in my basket, and then I couldn't remember my password. So by the time I figured it out, it had sold out. It wouldn't let me buy it. So I went to my local shop and there's about 10 copies in there.
Well, if you hadn't been able to find a copy at the local store, how would you feel about someone down your street, big van pulls up and they unload 100 copies that they are able to acquire? Okay, I'll sell you one for £5,000. No one else in the country has got them except me.
It would make you want it even more. I wouldn't pay that much, but it would definitely intrigue you as to, oh, if only I'd bought it. But you know, it's good, but it's not that good. I can say that because I've got it. It's good, but it's not that good. It's like any Games Workshop project, isn't it? It's like you buy into the hype and you think, oh, this is going to be amazing. I really want one. But once you get it, it's like, this is going to take me the next year to paint. Meanwhile, there's this other good stuff that's going up. So you get caught in this vicious cycle. And look at that. That's Andy on steroids with horns and hooves.
Do you want me to read a little bit about Kragnos?
Yes, please.
So
do.
there's a whole article about getting to know him. I don't think we're going to read all of it, but let's have a little taste to see if people want to dip their hooves into the world of Kragnos. In fact, look at him next to a Mega Gargant there.
We say hooves, don't we? But Americans go hoofs.
They sure do, those Americans. They get a lot of things wrong, it's true. So, before the time of men, Dwarden, elves, and even greenskins, the entirety of the Gurish heartlands was ruled by many monstrous races that towered over the lesser mortals of the era. One of these tribes was the Drogruk, powerful centauroid beings that, despite their great strength and capacity for war, lived in harmony with the land. Legend has it that Kragnos was born to the rulers of Dons. Dons, that's a silly name. The central nation of the Drogruk. And while his people
these names, man.
And while his people were content to take only what they needed to survive, Kragnos wanted more, scolded for beating his brother to a pulp over the right to court the same mare. The bad-tempered warrior struck out across Gur, with only a small band of trusted companions for company. As they grew skilled in the arts of war, these Drog-Ruk fashioned weapons and armour from exposed streams of magma, with Kragnos digging out the heart of a supercharged geomantic nexus to create his prized dread mace. It was around this time that he also recovered the shield Tuskbreaker from a deep ravine, having been hurled there in fury when Gorkamorka chipped his tooth, testing the great bronze shield like a man might test a gold coin.
Wow. I mean, I'm just imagining all that in my head, Andy. How does someone dig with hoofs? You know, a dog can dig really well with its paws, but you try doing that with hoofs. Not so easy, man.
Have you never heard of the great tunneling horse?
No, I haven't. I haven't. They're gonna have to show us that animated for us to really understand how that happened. Unless there he is with a spade.
Well, they
I don't
do. They're not just hooves. They do have these upper limbs as well.
Imagine
to
being
wield
mounted.
tools.
Imagine being mounted by that beast. You can understand why his love rival, his maiden didn't really fancy it. I mean, it looked painful, wouldn't it? Imagine that sitting on you. Not nice.
Anyway.
Andy's imagining it now.
Where were we? So yeah, they are putting it next to a lot of the Mega Gargants, aren't they? Just to show you that it is actually that vast. But of course, he is standing up on a rock, so he's got a bit of an advantage there.
Well, that's just seeing that picture, Andy. That's just upped my price prediction for this model.
Hyping it up size-wise, definitely. So
Yeah,
how
it's
much do you
gonna
think
be
it's going to be now?
How much was the giant? £110.
Mega Gargant's £120.
Yeah, I'm going to say 125.
I think I predicted at the time it would be slightly lower than a Mega Gargant, and I'm going to stick with that, but not by much. Just a teensy bit lower than the Mega Gargant, because the Gargant comes with a lot of options in the kit, so it's a lot of sprues, whereas this guy doesn't look like he's going to have as many options.
Will's come in the chat, correcting us one more time. £100 on the nose. That's what he said.
Well, if it is actually £100, that's pretty much me correct then. I said it'd be slightly less than the Mega Gargant.
Well, he just doesn't. Why is he? I mean, beasts of chaos. They're not destruction, are they? They're chaos,
No, they're
right?
chaos,
And he just fits in a beastman army. He doesn't look like he should be in an orc army.
Well, if you get this guy and put him with a load of beastmen, I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, I mean, the beastmen need something good as well, don't they? Right?
Imagine if during the end times, the beastmen had got this guy as their new centerpiece. Wouldn't you have loved that?
Phenomenal, man. That and, the Herdstone. The Herdstone's a great model as well. I'd definitely, if I still had my beastmen, I'd get that. But yeah, maybe, who's to stop you? You can use them for beastmen, right?
No one's going to stop you at all. However,
I just don't like those orcs. Those yellow armored orcs. They look silly.
Do you want to see his war scroll? It's been a while since we deeply probed a war scroll, hasn't it?
Go on, then.
18 wounds, 10 bravery, save 2+, obviously.
2+? I've never seen that before.
So, let's have a look at some of his stats. He's got special rules that fill a lot of space. So, his basic rules, though, he's got all these various weapons, and only one of them is actually dependent on his number of wounds, but his movement is as well. So his movement starts off at 10 and drops to 7, which isn't much of a drop, really.
No.
The hooves and rack of ruin drops from 6 attacks to 3, so only one of his attacks actually drops as he takes wounds, which isn't that worrying, really. And then his bellow of rage changes, so let's see what that actually is.
It gets better, doesn't it, as he gets more wounded?
It sounds like it, yes. Harder. So him being wounded, based on that, is clearly not much of a hindrance. Let's see what the bellow of rage actually does. At the end of any phase, if any wounds were allocated to this model in the phase and not negated, roll a dice for each other unit and each defensible terrain feature within 6 inches of this model. Roll is equal to or greater than the bellow of rage value shown on this model's damage table, and that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds, or that defensible terrain feature is demolished. So he's so angry he just smashes up everything around him. whenever he gets wounded.
Well,
The more wounded he is, the more likely he is to smash them up.
I bet he's got a big plate there, hasn't he? I mean, a big movement thing there. He's going to take up like a lot of room on the tabletop. So you can actually remove scenery then with this guy. He just smashes it up. So you come across, the IDF Deep King shipwreck or something, and this guy just, brushes it aside. Nice.
He can take out Star Drakes, Dracoths, and Dracolines quite easily. He can re-roll charge rolls and hit rolls when within 12 inches of any of those on the side.
Yeah.
So, Star Drake killer. Sounds like he's good against enemy monsters.
Does he have a breath weapon? I don't think so.
Don't
Well,
know
the
if he has
Bell
a
of
breath
Rage.
weapon.
The Bell of Rage kind of is, isn't it?
You can include Kragnos in a destruction army, even if he does not have the army's keyword on his war scroll. If you do so, he cannot use or benefit from any of that army's allegiance abilities, and you cannot include any mercenary units in your army.
So you can't put him with Beastmen then?
Well, who's going to stop you?
Well, I don't know. The rules police. They exist.
Well, you could always have beastmen, but use the orc rules for them.
Just weird. He doesn't even look like an orc. Why would they worship him?
I don't know. He's such a beastman. It is an insult to the beastmen.
It is.
Anyway,
And the orcs have already got a monster, haven't they? They've already got that big cabbage thing.
that is true. So, re-rolling ones says, I like narrative rules like the Star Drake hatred stuff. Yes, rules that are specific to certain enemies that you're not going to be facing all the time, but when you do face them, you can get a sense of his hatred. He's so much more efficient at killing them. And that would be handy for you to have as well. Because you may come up against a Star Drake now and then.
It would. Andy's Star Drake demolished pretty much my whole Gloomspike Kit's army. So that could probably, having, Kragnos in that could have been quite handy, I suppose. But with a 2-up save, he looks pretty invulnerable, right? 18 wounds?
Well, I'm sure mortal wounds would be useful, but let's see. He's got a shield on him. Each time this model is affected by a spell or an endless spell ability, roll 3d6. If the roll is greater than the casting value of that spell or endless spell, ignore the effects of that spell. Yeah, so he's good at avoiding damage as well there.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can avoid mortal wounds. I haven't seen anything to that effect, but I wouldn't be too surprised. There's a lot of designer's notes on here. He must be quite complicated. There's a lot of text for him and a lot of stat lines. Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's have a look at some of these releases. And did I make audio for Dice Watch as a segment yet?
No, don't bother.
I feel like I did, but I haven't added it to the show, so I'll just have to do it myself. Okay, so I'll roll some dice and then I'll say it in the cool voice, and then we'll Dice Watch for these new Adeptus Mechanicus dice. Okay. Dice Watch. Okay, let's rate these dice. Nice clear numbers. Symbol very distinct. You're not really going to get it confused with any of the numbers.
Meh. Why didn't they have all the dots as little cogs?
They certainly could have done that. Whether that would have made them easy to read, I'm not sure. But the colours, nice and clear. Symbols, nice and clear. It's on the 6, clearly, because you can see a number 1 there, which is a plus point. So, they're not the most exciting colour, I would say. So maybe mark down a little bit.
Yeah,
there's nothing too wild with them. I would like them to be spiced up a little bit, but not at the expense of the readability and overall clarity. So lacking a little bit of spice, but otherwise solid, so I'm going to give them a thumbs up on Dice Watch. How about you?
Just... Nah.
Don't do anything for you.
No, I mean, if you're going to sell me those for £1, I'd buy them for £1. but they're not going to be £1, are they?
No. They're more likely to be £17.50.
Wow. That would be a no from me then, Matthew.
I don't know if they'd be quite that much. These are all the pre-orders, by the way, so just going to skim through them. There are some t-shirts as well. Look like 40k related, so not that exciting, of course. Then more stuff. Space Marines. What else have they got on pre-order? There isn't a Space Marine. More Necrons.
She looks cool. Yeah,
More Necrons.
Boring.
More Necrons. Skeletons.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. Amazing. No, boring.
Direwolves. Very nice.
Direwolves kind of cool, yeah.
Wolf lady.
Amazing.
Wolf dude. Vampires.
Yeah. Amazing.
All this cool stuff is going up for pre-order this week.
Amazing. Look at those two. They look. I haven't seen that vampiress. If you go up next to the rat prince.
I think we have looked at that one before. And I
Really?
I remember being critical of the overall smoothness of the hair and the cloak. I thought it could have done with a bit more going on.
Looks magnificent, man. I mean,
I'd just like to see a bit more texture, that's all.
Well, don't you think it's strange that she's on a cavalry base? Isn't that weird? Just to accommodate her dress.
Is it weird? Maybe by old standards where everyone used to overhang their base, but it's pretty standard now. You can see models in the same unit on different size bases now. You've got the Stormcast with the big crossbows. One of them's kind of holding his crossbow upwards, so he's on a small base. The other two who are aiming it are on the longer bases.
Right, I see. Well, I like both those models. They, yeah, I might have to get them.
Fat skeletons, which you're not a fan of. Up for pre-order.
No, they're terrible. What's that? Are they so they're selling Cursed City models individually now, or in little gangs?
Yes, they are. So you can buy the little evil retinue there.
Do you think they just realised, oh, the actual game is a bit pants? Let's just release the models because that's all people really want.
Maybe they had tons of the models and had a supply chain issue with the tokens or whatever.
Right.
That's just wild speculation there, but that would be a reason to start selling off the miniatures on their own.
I still haven't painted any more of these guys. I've just painted the two sort of Tsar ogres. Rusty ogres, that's all I've done.
I'm sure you'll be back on that train soon enough. So, Fat Skeletons t-shirts with, it looks like Bone Reaper t-shirt there, and this one, what is that? Is that Bone Reapers as well?
They could do so much better with the t-shirts. It's just a print. It's like...
Yeah, I'm not really feeling these t-shirts.
I can make that stuff myself.
Like that one looks like the kind of thing you'd see on like eBay even, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'm not sold on that one. It's, the whole shirt doesn't really vibe with the design on it. Bit of a weird one. Necromunda stuff. More Necromunda weapons. And that's that.
Is that a Necromancer box set?
It looks like it, but it does have a rule book in, which obviously no one could possibly read because it's so weird.
So it looks like you got Etcher in there, and you've got the sort of the creepy gang.
The Delac.
Yeah, it's Delac gang. So, well, we need a Necromunda board, don't we?
So do you want to look at something that's doing wildly financially well?
Go on then.
The Witcher board game with miniatures in it. So I'm going to refresh the page actually to see if... I know I don't need to. It's auto-updating. Here we go.
Wow. Who makes this then?
Well, this is a company that I'd never heard of until today. So I'm just going to wait till this counter stops going up.
Jesus. Is that in real time?
I believe it is. I think a minute ago it was just updating because I just opened the page again. But it's already way beyond its total. And look, it's going up constantly. Obviously, The Witcher is a massive IP.
I'm watching that. I'm watching The Witcher at the minute for the second time. It's still just as good.
Company Go On Board, they're called, and they've made 3 projects, and nothing that they've done before has got anywhere near this level. So obviously, this is a big license for them, and it's doing very well. And I was intrigued and thought, a Witcher board game, that could be really fun. But then looking at it, as soon as I saw that the miniatures were optional, I thought, it's probably not really built for the miniatures then. If they're selling a version of it without the miniatures, it's just really a board and card game with the miniatures kind of tacked on.
You think it's sort of a monster hunting game?
It seems to be something along those lines, yes.
Right, okay, I see.
So while I'm sure it would be fun, I would be more interested in a Witcher miniatures game. And this isn't really that. So it might not be my cup of tea.
Are the miniatures good though?
They certainly look nice, but I think we're mostly seeing the renders. Let's see if they've got some full photos of them.
What do you mean by that when you say you see the render?
Just like in the 3D sculpting program. Like here's what it looks like before we print it, kind of. So I don't think you can really enlarge them too much, the pictures. But they've got all the monsters you'd expect in there. And particularly people who have played The Witcher 3, a lot of the monsters look like they're straight from that.
They're more from the video games or the books rather than from the TV series.
They look very, very based on the games to me.
Did you play the games at all, Andy?
Yes. I've played all 3 of the main Witcher games, and I also played Thronebreaker, which is like a card puzzly type adventure PC game set in the same universe, and that was very good as well. I'm a big fan, so you would think I'd be a potential customer for this, but people are saying that there's not quite enough information on it all yet. So I'm going to wait and see where the campaign goes and see if things appear, see if there are maybe separate pledges just to get some of the miniatures, because they are nice.
Where's the pressure on your idea? If you started a Kickstarter and you wanted about £1,000 and you suddenly were bombarded with £1 million worth.
Well, I'm sure they knew they were going to get millions for this because it's so wildly popular and a worldwide phenomenon. There is no way it was only going to do its target.
How would they get the IP? How do you even go about that?
I would imagine that they got into, or either they got in touch with the game developers or they got in touch with them.
Yeah.
And then either it would have gone, hey, we want someone to make a board game, or hey, we want to make a board game. You have a really good IP. Here's our idea. Here are the financial terms we propose. What do you think?
Right.
I'm sure it wasn't that complicated.
What is standard IP is? Is it like they get 50% of everything you make, or do you have to pay a sum, like some kind of dowry, or do someone pay a monthly, a weekly, or?
I think this would be something to ask Annie about at some point. She's the industry expert, so when she's next on the show, we'll have to grill her on the perils of IP, because I'm sure she's looked into it at least.
Well, I'm just going to eat a Stroop and waffle right now, so you might hear some noise just for momentarily. There you go, Stroop and waffle.
Okay, so is anyone backing this campaign? Obviously people are, but is anyone in the audience backing this campaign? I mean, we could just look at that counter go up for the rest of the night, really, and it wouldn't slow down, I imagine. But it's already £1 million over its initial goal, which it was clearly going to do. I don't know where it's going to end. I think it depends how they're going to run the rest of the campaign, because it's only just launched today.
Wow.
So if there's a lot of stretch goals popping up, and they've got a lot of extra content over the next 17 days, which I would imagine they do have if it's that long. Otherwise, people would get bored otherwise.
The first day is often the biggest day, isn't it? The sort of launch, right?
The first day and the last day, I think, seem to do.
I'm going to say they're going to raise 2 million.
I think they'll do more than that. Don't know how much, but see, I'll give you a guess now because you're saying 2 million. I'm gonna go and say 3.7 million.
Wow, pounds.
Yes, when it finishes.
Wow.
I could be way off, but I think The Witcher is a massive deal, and I think they're going to have some surprises in store, and people that have already backed are probably going to up their pledges when they see some of the stuff that pops up. I can only assume. I mean, look at it, it's still going. Anyway, let's move on. So, I believe it's time for... Let's just find this. Here we go. It's time for...
Remington's hot tip. Ooh.
Remington's hot tip. So, the hot tip, you actually sent me an image for the hot tip this week, didn't you?
I did. I
Which
thought
was
we should have
this.
some visual stimulus for tonight's hot tip. Yes.
Yes, so it's a little bit philosophical, this one. So
I'd like
would you like to... You going to read it out?
Yes, I think... No, I'd like you to read it out, Andy, in your amazing voice, but it's kind of like a metaphor. I want you to, don't take this literally, although you could, but try and think of this
Okay.
in your life.
Let's apply this to the world of Remington investments, perhaps. So here we go. It is impossible to sink in quicksand. Quicksand has a density of approximately 2 grams per millimeter, whereas human density is only around 1 gram per millimeter. That means you are not dense enough to fully sink into it. However, motion liquefies the sand, which means the more you panic and move around, the more you sink. Stay still, you'll only descend up to your waist. So are you trying to tell us that if we see markets crashing left and right, stock share prices going through the floor, arrows all pointing downwards, if you start flailing around, panicking, selling off, then you're only going to hurt yourself in the long run? You should just remain steady and ride it out and wait for help to come along. Maybe a celebrity will tweet in support of the company that you're investing in, and the price will head back up, and they'll pull in a branch and you can pull yourself to safety. Is that what you're saying?
Of course, you get to a point in your life, Andy, where you know what you want, okay, or you have an idea of what you want, and this idea formulates over time and you become more confident in it. So it could be that you really like Games Workshop, or it could be that you really like this person, okay, or it could be I really like Bitcoin, right? So whatever it is, you've got to stand behind your conviction, even if everyone else is telling you that you're crazy, you're mad, you're an idiot, or everyone's running the other way. You've got to be, if you really believe in something, you've got to be prepared to lay down in front of a tank for it. Well, maybe that's a bit extreme, but okay, you maybe just, don't bend with the wind. You just got to stand in that quicksand, and you may sink to your waist, but you won't drown in it. And while everyone else is going, "Woo," and actually sinking, you're the one standing tall at the end of the day with a big pile of cash.
So if we apply this to let's find a historical example. So do you think when the Titanic was going down, you encouraged people to stay on the deck playing their violins rather than heading for the lifeboats? They should just stand tall with piles of cash at the end. Is that what you think is going to happen to them?
They maybe didn't do enough research about what boat to take or what company to work for, So at that point, it was too late. Okay, too late. So they may as well just play the song and drown with it. So yeah, that's
Play the
I
song
don't
and
know,
drown with it. There is a
unfair-
t-shirt slogan.
That's an unfair example, Andy. Can you give us another one?
Another example of people sinking.
No, of standing by your convictions.
Okay, what about if you truly believe that you can swim in lava?
Yeah, but that's just silly.
But everyone says you're an idiot. No, it can never be done. But if you stand true to your convictions, stand tall and plunge into that hot magma.
I didn't give that sort of example, did I? I didn't say that. I said, don't be afraid to go against the crowd.
You want me to give you one of the few specific examples that backs up your point, rather than the many that don't?
You're just doing extreme stuff, right?
Okay.
Okay.
I think we can accept that as the Remington's hot tip of the week.
But look, I've given you a fact. That is a fact. An irrefutable fact. If you stand still in quicksand, you won't sink.
Okay.
I mean, you won't drown in it, so you can't
You
refute that.
can definitely apply that to the real world, I assume,
Yes.
if this is actually factual. But I don't know whether you can apply that to everything in life. I think maybe you have to judge each situation on its own merits.
It's factual. It's satisfactual. Okay.
Satisfactual. Is that the name of one of your albums, by any chance?
No, it's one of the lyrics in Zippity Doodah from Disney.
Should we look at some audience community?
Yeah,
notes?
no one's written anything in the audience, but they've sent stuff in. Look at these. Ice goblins. What are these? No.
These are all clearly goblins.
Is that contrast paint by any chance?
Let's find out, because I believe that Brad is in the chat. He's the one that painted these. So if there's any contrast paints used, I think contrast paints are one of those things where you're risking insulting somebody by asking if they've used them.
I see.
Because if they haven't, if they say no, then it's, oops, it looks like your whole miniature's just been washed.
Fair enough. Do you know what I will say? I say if you're not going to paint goblins green, I think blue is definitely a cool color scheme.
Apparently they are contrast painted.
Yeah.
So well spotted there. They do look nice though. Got some more pictures of them here.
Nice. I have this gang as well.
Very tasty indeed.
Nice. Look at that. He's captured a little fairy in a lantern. He won't release it. Not very nice, is it?
Camera focused on that one there with two little hairs attached to him.
So
you see in close up.
You've not gotten yourself an Underworld box yet, have you, Andy? Which ones appeal to you?
Well, I'm not even sure that Underworld is appealing anymore, you know. We have been thinking about getting into one of these games, but I think we're leaning towards Warcry based on the way the community was talking about Underworlds. But it's still up for debate, though. Certainly not decided.
This gang intrigued me, but I thought that they looked the most cartoonish, especially the sort of shamaness. That's awesome figure, that one. About to throw the spear, wicked. But yeah, I think Brad's is this Brad again? Brad's paint job for the female shaman looks amazing. Better than the Games Workshop one, in my opinion.
Okay, we've got a couple of segments left. Are you mentally prepared for the Forest of Rem this week?
Oh god. Oh god.
Are you prepared?
You can make it a short one then.
Okay, it won't be a ridiculously long one, but there will be a moral dilemma. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
We've got the logo there, and I'm going to start playing the theme song right now.
In the forest of Rem, in the forest of Rem, where boys become men, in the forest of Rem, Andy and Rem in the forest of Rem, in the forest of Rem, in the forest of Rem. Is it a chicken or is it a hen? You decide when or when, in the forest of Rem, in the forest of Rem, in the forest.
There we go, the music is over. And it's time for the next instalment of the Forest of Rem. You may remember, if you cast your minds back to previous installments, originally, young Remlad, the demonic hoof polisher from the realm of Rem, working under being trampled under the boot of the evil overlord, Remington the Everchosen. Young Remlad, slowly rising up the ranks to think he'd become the demonic fetlock brusher on the demonic steeds in the flock of evil creatures. And unfortunately, the realm was invaded by the righteous, upstanding Stormcast Eternals, who struck down with furious, hammer-like vengeance upon the sacred shrine, or the unholy shrine, shall we say, of Remington the Everchosen, shattering it, sending the worshippers and cultists fleeing through the various realm gates. Remington fled into the realm of beasts, Remlad, should I say, where he has encountered various troubles. He found fleeing villagers. He found a wyvern, which he's befriended, although he did lose both of his hands in the encounter, one of which has been replaced with a spike on the end of a bucket. He was assisted in fitting this by a young boy named Jimothy, who Remlad then willingly sacrificed to a pair of old crones, if you recall. So that wasn't very nice of him. And now, in order to be guided towards the realm gate he seeks to take him back home so that he can lead his wyvern on a vengeance mission against the Stormcast, crones have told him he must bring them chickens in exchange for information. And as we left off in the last episode, a small How to Catch Chickens handbook was found on Jimothy's corpse. So you could have had the ideal chicken catching companion had you not allowed him to be decapitated by crones.
I didn't think he'd get decapitated. I merely asked him to look into a house while I was sat on the wyvern. You know, it's his fault he managed to get caught and beheaded. So I won't have his death on my hands. Anyway, so I've got to catch some chickens. I think the best way is to lure them, entice them close, and then get the wyvern to breathe fire on them so we could get some roasted chickens for the witches.
I will actually remind you, though, because even though it would be funny if you turn up with roasted chickens, the witches did specify that they had to be alive, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, right. Well, how do you catch a chicken?
Well, you do have the Chicken Catcher's Handbook. Would you like to read it?
Okay, yeah, but I'd prefer it if you just told me.
Well, I'm going to ask you to roll a dice to see what condition this book is in.
Okay, I'm going to roll my famous skull dice.
Which always serves you well if you're trying to roll a 2.
Famous for rolling really badly. Here we go. Remington. It's a 4. Decent.
That's not bad. That's okay. That's better than usual. So the book is in a language you can comprehend. And the first chapter is all about locating chickens. Second chapter, all about luring chickens. Third chapter is about capturing the chickens. And then after that, there's a lot of stuff on food preparation and various seasonings and side dishes and wine pairings for the various chicken dishes that you could make. So you probably don't want to go to that section yet. So you're going to want to start with the how to locate chickens, and there are several crude illustrations of chickens. And also, inside this chapter falls out a small piece of folded paper, which appears to be a map. So perhaps Jimothy had been tracking chicken movements in the area, perhaps to feed his village, who were mostly slaughtered and chased off by the wyvern, if I recall.
Okay.
So there is a series of scrawls and markings and X marks the spot type things on this map. It's quite crude though, but you can just about, swooping across the land on the back of this wyvern, you can just about make out various landmarks, forest, a bit of a river. So you can see there's what appears to be a prominent area of the map in a clearing down by a river next to an old tower. Something's clearly marked on the map there.
Okay, well, that's definitely worth investigating.
So you're going to try and steer the wyvern down there?
Yes, let's go.
Okay, roll the dice.
Okay, I'm going to roll the dice, and I'm going to roll a good number here. Remington! It's a 2.
It's not great. So the wyvern swoops down towards this clearing. However, one of its mighty wings does clip a tall stone tower on its way down, and the top of the tower, which goes up to a fine spire, topples off and rolls into the river.
Oosh.
Water splashes everywhere, and the head of the tower is firmly trapped within the river, acting like a dam almost. So as the water starts to swell up on one side of this dam, Wyvern brings you down into the clearing. However, at this point, you notice that there are quite a lot of chickens around, as you hoped, but they're all on the other side of the river, and the water around these chickens is slowly rising as a result of your less than optimal landing, shall we say. How would you like to proceed?
Oh, we've landed with a bit of a crash there, but I'm going to just revert back to my my sermon about quicksand. Let's just let the water take us in before we bounce off and onto dry land.
So you're going to allow the water to rise a little bit.
Yes.
Okay. Water rises. The chickens on the other side of the river, the water has now gone up to the top of their legs.
Good. So they're not going to be able to run off now. And
That is true.
I don't know that chickens can swim, but I'm going to need some kind of net. Do I have anything to catch the chickens with?
You do
'Cause
not
my
have a
hands have
net.
been
You
bitten
have
off.
your spike. You have the. There is a tower next to you. If you could search in there potentially, but I will warn you that the water is still rising. So we don't know how long these chickens have got, frankly.
Well, how many do I need to get?
Well, I don't know if that was specified, but you would think at least a few.
Can the talons of the wyvern snatch up a few?
If you think the wyvern can be trusted to snatch up a few chickens without murdering them, then you're free to try that. But while you're pondering this, the door of the tower creaks open, and a middle-aged lady sprints out towards you. Oi, you knocked the top off my tower! What are you playing at?
Oh, hello, my good lady. A handsome reward for you if you can just gather me up some of these chickens.
Chickens, what have you done to my river? You blocked it up, you have.
That's just natural ebb and flow of nature, my dear.
You're flooding my land, you are. Oh, you've got a wyvern. What's his name?
His name is. He's going to eat you unless you just give us some chickens, and then we'll be on our way.
Oh, that's how it is it?
It is. I wouldn't get this wyvern too angry because he'd tear you to pieces otherwise. So, please gather 2 or 3 chickens for us, and we'll be on our way.
Well, I'm going to roll the dice now for what a situation that I've conjured up in my mind, and this will determine the resolution of it. Yep.
Please.
It's not a very good number.
Oh.
You know what? I'm going to go and get my husband, I am. She runs off behind the tower and disappears.
Oh, great. Well, let's just try and grab a bunch of chickens and get off ourselves.
Very well. Okay, so are you going to try and scoop them up yourself, or are you going to try and use the wyvern?
I'm going to... If you want something, do it yourself. So I'm going to try. Let's scoop them up.
So you're going to try and swim across the river and grab these chickens in the shallow waters on the other side?
No. I'm not swimming without any hands. No, let's get the wyvern to gather them up. Yes.
Okay. Roll the dice.
Okay. Roll the dice. I'm going to roll high. I can feel it. Remington. It's a 2.
Ooh, at the first attempt, the wyvern's talons do grip a chicken, but instead of gripping it safely, it's kind of feathers and guts splatter everywhere, and it was an unsuccessful snatch, shall we say. But before you get a chance for another go, you hear in the distance, "Look what he done to our house!" Followed by dum, 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 dum,
Ooh.
dum, dum, dum. Something very large is approaching with thunderous footsteps.
Ooh. Yeah. Well, let's just have another go at gathering the chickens with the other claw of the wyvern.
Go on then.
All right. So let's get a 6 now. That's what I'm looking for. Remington. It's a 2.
Unfortunately, the wyvern, while attempting to grip one of the other chickens, skewers it with its long, pointy claw. So you've got a bit of a chicken kebab there. But that's not really what the crones wanted. At this point, the shadow of something very large passes next to the tower and comes into view. It's something the like of which you may have seen only in your nightmares or perhaps in your adventures in the realm of Rem. It is a Mega Gargant.
Oh, come on.
A Mega Gargant armed with an enormous net. Perhaps a Kraken Eater. You were right, dear. He's made a right mess of it over here.
God.
I told you he did.
Hello, my good man. Perhaps you can help me.
Gargant does not seem to be in the mood. Chat. He starts swinging the net around. It looks like he's about to attempt to bring down your wyvern with it.
Right. Well, let's just get one last attempt at swooping up, swooping down, gathering some chickens, and flying off. Let's get out of here.
Okay, go for it. Roll the dice, see if you can grab a chicken.
Okay. It's a 4.
That's not bad. I'm going to roll a dice now for the attempt to capture the wyvern with the giant Kraken Eater's net. Here we go.
Do that.
And it's a 5.
Oh, God.
Which is higher than what you rolled. The Mega Gargant swings his net around, launches it out, and it crashes down on top of the wyvern, the heavy boulders pulling the beast to the ground, entangling its wings, and the wyvern plummets into the shallow waters. The holes in the net are big enough for you to climb through, probably.
Well, I should definitely climb through it and maybe plead with the Mega Gargant. Maybe I can enlist him into my motley crew to avenge the damage done by the Warriors of Sigmar.
So you're going to tell him briefly, you're going to run through the tale of how you came to be here.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell him that there's so many gold, shiny little men that he can have for free if he joins me.
He scratches his chin momentarily. You're going to have to roll a dice this one, see how persuasive your tale is.
Okay, I've got it. This is the one now. Remington. Oh, it was a 6, and then it fell off the table.
Well,
I'm looking at it. It's a 6 on the floor. It's a 6, I promise you.
okay, I'll give you that. So at this point, the Mega Gargant is still unconvinced, but his wife steps forward, climbs up inside the tower, leans out one of the windows, and whispers into his ear. That's a good point, dear. We haven't had Stormcast soup for at least a couple of weeks. Mega Gargant seems to be in agreement with your plan that perhaps together you could hunt down some Stormcast.
Well, my good man, all we need to do is gather up some chickens, take it to some of my friends, and they will tell us where the Stormcast have gone.
Chickens? And at this point, he pulls... There's no other way to put it. He pulls down his pants, revealing dozens of chickens in there, just clucking around, grasping for some air. And the Gargant is now fully on board with your plan.
Oh, I love
He
it.
cuts loose the wyvern, and you are now leading a couple of really ferocious and powerful monsters in your quest. So at this point, I assume you want to head back to the Crones.
Yeah, let's leave it there. That's a
Yep.
happy ending. That's beautiful.
That certainly is. So Remington, not only does he have the wyvern by his side, he now has a Kraken Eater Mega Gargant. And he's going to head back to the Crones, get some directions, and then probably it's going to be a really easy task getting through that realm gate, using his monsters to smash up the Stormcast. What could possibly go wrong from here?
Everything.
Find out next time on the First Rep. Okay. It's about time to wrap this one up. So obviously we've got time for the most important segment of the show. And I think we all know what that is, don't we? You know what that is?
No.
Yeah, you do.
What the
It's-
hell is that?
Nope, because What the Hell Is That has now become a weekly video all on its own.
Oh,
And no one's even successfully guessed this week's episode yet.
it's hard.
This one's
Really
not
hard.
actually that difficult. I'm going to give people a clue right now for this week's episode because I want someone to get it. So if I tell you now that there are 2 models in this week's What the Hell Is That, and they are both different incarnations of the same model, that is a massive clue. You get onto this week's What the Hell Is That and you're the first one to guess. Remember, there will be a prize given away after a few episodes. So It's worth going for it. Okay, let's start the... How do I find this? Oh, there we go. Steaming away in here. That can only mean it's time for everyone to sit back, relax, close their eyes, because it's time for...
Andy's Deep Bar.
The #1 internet segment in the world of relaxation is here. It's time. It's Deep Bath. So everybody, close your eyes, relax, starting with your fingertips and toes, eventually your whole body in a state of relaxation. Sit back and imagine yourself in a grand, majestic hot tub with enough seats for 1,000 people around the edges. You might not be in the VIP section, but out the corner of your eye, if you look over to the VIP section, you can see the following people who are in there with their VIP passes that allow them in the extra bubbly area of the water, where there are massage, submerged cushions in there. They're being served all the finest delicacies. You can see the following people in this kind of service. You see Cedar, Oshi, Tim, On, Tim, Nicholas, Eric, Brad, Barbara, and Guy, all of them receiving A-star service around Andy's Deep Bath. You can see how relaxed Remington is. Look at him there. He's asleep. So as you sit back and relax, feel compelled suddenly to subscribe to this channel if you're not, to like the video pad. While you're at it, you have this epiphany that you should be following all of the social media channels linked in the description. You should be joining the Discord server, the Facebook group, following on Twitter. You should be following Andy2D6 Instagram. Maybe if you're feeling really brave, maybe you could even subscribe to Remington Steel on YouTube. So you feel like you want one piece of content every 6 years. Remington Steel is definitely the channel for you. At this point, once you've been influenced by the power of suggestion, fully embraced all of the social media goodness, time, bath, slowly and carefully, not to slip, dangerous. So it's time to get out of the bath. Safely out of the deep bath. Wasn't that relaxing?
Yeah, that's lovely. I've
Yes.
got to go now.
Remington thoroughly enjoyed it. He's got to go. It's time to wrap the show up. So would you like to say farewell to the audience, Mr. Remington?
Farewell to the audience, Mr. Remington.
Don't forget to join us next week, everybody. And don't forget to go and guess what the hell is that. There are 2 previous episodes of it unanswered. So prizes up for grabs. I can't stress this enough, folks. You should be getting in there and guessing. Okay. Bring up the thumbnail. You know what that means? It's the end of the show. What remains to be said now is good night out there. Whatever you are.
It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show on your screens tonight. It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show for your home delight. We're talking about Age of Sigmar and anything else that is cool. Talking about Warhammer fantasy, it's easy to learn.